when I'm thinking about this as you're talking, I start to think about even in the dating scene or whatever, because like basically, I guess the debate we're having is it really harder to date today than it was, back then, right?
Yeah, if you're not exceptionally wealthy, tall, or good looking, I think it is, yeah.
Because like I'm just thinking about other aspects of life where things get harder, and it's like, okay, we use the Amazon example, and that's one extreme example of like it's legitimately winner take all.
Yes.
Everyone else is done. Okay, that's the extreme. Then you start to think about other aspects of business and life, and you're like, okay, like in sports, yeah, the teams that spend the most, like they're
do well.
They're gonna do better than the teams that don't.
Go Rangers.
Go Rangers. They look perfect, dude. They just freaking cranked. They spent $500 million
to Simeon and Seager, and
it paid off. Then they buy DeGrom. They don't even need him, and they still win.
I've been watching the Rangers for 30, 40 years, and I just all of a sudden out of nowhere, a rich guy buys the team and wants to spend money, and we win a World Series.
Exactly. So like, all right, that is what it is. In business, in social media, it goes back to the 80-20 rule. Like the 80-20 rule, the dude figured it out a long time ago, and he's like, man, this is weird. Like, it seems like 20% of the people own 80% of the stuff.
Fractals of the Pareto principle.
Yeah. And then you see it in time, you see it in business, and you're like, yeah, I could guarantee you that 20% of the real estate investors own 80% of the city,
Yeah, and like 20% of the real estate agents are doing 80% of the sales.
Exactly. And then social media, right? The statistic of social media, you're like, hey, I'm not a consumer, I'm a producer. Well, the stat is 99% of people on social media consume from content from the 1%. So like this idea of 80-20 or the extreme cases of 1%, 99%, they've been around for a long time. 80-20 rule has been around a long time, and you could trace it back to that. There's never been like this equality thing of whatever. Now people are saying like, okay, middle class is gone, because that would have been like that thing of like, hey, we're all kind of in the middle class.
Yeah.
There's not like this gap. And I don't know if that's true or not, but like what I do know is elite people in any industry or thing, dating, sports, business, faith, whatever, right? They always stand out. The cream always rises to the top. And, everyone else isn't really close. That's just the way it is. And then they just kind of like get by. They find a partner, they find a spouse. To me, it's just, that's life always. I don't think it has to do with social media. I think that the cream rises to the top even better with technology and everything else.
Yes, so what you're saying is hypergamy is a natural state for humans. Hypergamy meaning women choosing a small group of men up at the top, always trying to get that top guy, the Jason Momoa, the Chris Hemsworth.
Well, but like, let's just take social media out of it. Like when I was growing up, right? I came up in high school when MySpace was coming out. So like social media wasn't around when you were in high school. But with even that, right? In the local high school level, there's hierarchy.
Yes, of course.
There's the jocks, there's the guys.
Yeah, quarterback of the football team dating the head cheerleader,
yeah,
and then cheating on her with a couple other girls.
Like the nerds, they're out of it, right? So like social media didn't cause that. That was always there.
Right, for sure. So we'd call that hypergamy. That's the term where that comes from, the 80-20 rule when it comes to dating in a short-term context. The difference, though, is the globalization, like we talked about with Amazon, the globalization of a dating market, meaning there is no Vegas dating market anymore. The hottest girls in Vegas get flown to Dubai.
Oh, I get that.
They get offered. So because of that, what's happened is, while in the long term you might be a dude who's a 6 who marries a girl who's a 6, the problem is that 6 was at Bilzerian's house and the Maxim party. And she was at the Playboy Mansion, and she reached out to her favorite athlete on the Mavericks, and then ended up sleeping with him. And by the time she gets to you, she's got 230% more sexual partners than the girls who didn't cheat. Well, that's the point I'm making.
I think, and this is like, I have no data. This is everything I use is common sense.
Sure,
that's just my like. Oh yeah, she slept with a lot of guys. Of course, she has like a higher likelihood of cheating. I don't even need data to see it. Like, it's common sense.
Yeah.
So like. And by the way, same thing as a dude.
Yeah, men do cheat more when they have more sexual partners, but it's not for the same reason.
It's not one gender or the other.
But they cheat more when they have more sexual partners before marriage, because their ability to have sex with more women existed. So like, say a woman marries the drummer for a huge band, and he had hundreds of sexual partners before they married. When they're married, he still has the options with those women. When women want to cheat, sex manifests. often men want to cheat and nobody wants to cheat with them. So that's why fewer men cheat. That's why the two men cheating versus women cheating are numbers that should not be compared to each other because they have nothing to do with each other. Anyway.
Yeah. So basically where I'm getting at is like, you're saying, oh, well, the 6 is like, whatever. And I'm just kind of thinking, all right, let's look big picture here. Okay. If I have this preconceived idea that the cream always rises to the top, and at the time, let's say the cream is in high school, and so it's local. Dude, I don't know who the other hot girls in other high schools are. Like, you're shielded from it. You're just in your own little local bubble, okay? Then you get into college, and, like, there's more people in college and whatever, right? So then again, the cream rises to the top in college. Especially, there's only one quarterback of this college of, like, all the best prospects, right? Then there's one quarterback of the NFL team.
Dude, I was talking to a girl in college, and she told Chris Sims, the quarterback for the Texas Longhorns at the time, he works for ESPN now.
Yeah.
He totally just stole this girl from me.
Yeah.
Chris Sims. Like,
exactly.
It was,
so, like, the cream rises to the top.
Quarterback of the football team literally did that to me, yes.
Exactly, locally, right? And so I think social media, to your point, did create a globalization, but to me, it didn't, like, change the dynamic at all because it's just like, well, hey, now the cream we have to now compete globally, because it would used to be like, hey, if Ryan, let's just say, has a real estate program and, like, I didn't have social media, and so I was a local celebrity and, I did my thing. Now people have options. It's not like anyone here in Vegas, they don't have to do my program. They can do any number of global programs. And so now, instead of just being the man locally, I have to compete globally.
Yes.
And I saw this play out in sports when it was like, oh, I go from high school to being the best in high school to, hey, I'm in college now. These guys are all the best. Oh, crap. Now I have to go to the pros, where it's not even about the U.S. anymore. I got the Dominicans. Yes. I got the Japanese. And so, like, it's like, to me, the same thing as social media. Finally, everything came to a head of globalization and true competition, best of the best. And so now I'm like, well, dude, if somebody's truly a 6, not even talking about dating, but just like a level 6 person in whatever thing you're doing, if they have to go compete now globally, well, yeah, they're going to get crushed.
Yes.
Because,
especially in a short-term, unfamiliar sense.
Yeah, they're getting crushed. Yep. And the people who are 8s, 9s, and 10s, I mean, dude, they still have a way tougher time now.
They have a tougher time, and I'm telling you, it's not going to be 8s, 9s, and 10s for long. It's just going to be 9s and 10s. Then it's just going to be 10s.
I agree. Yeah. And that's like what, it happened. But basically, all the other people still exist. It's just like, to stand out becomes harder and harder and harder because of globalization.
Andrew Tate exists and became popular because that bottom third of men were not being heard by anyone, including academia. And you guys, if you don't agree with me, go listen to Richard Reeves on my podcast. He said Andrew Tate was because us in academia were not willing to have a conversation about the men being left behind.
But I think those people were always left behind. That's my point. I think if you were in the bottom third of men, social media did not change anything. You were always struggling.
I think in the 1950s, you would talk to a girl who lived across the street from you. You would probably marry someone who was around your same socioeconomic class. You guys would have kids together. There was a lower divorce rate. No, I think the lack of options caused the short-term dating market to be way, like, guys who would be in the bottom third or the bottom quartile of men at least got married. I think that was a difference. Now it's like, I believe for women, it's 6 in every 1,000 women are getting married now. It's crazy low numbers of marriage that are going on.
But then I would bring up the other point of, okay, is this actually like a social media? Because we're basically saying social media is the big reason why, like.
Yeah, we have numbers. There's one data that shows the number of the men with zero sexual partners going up to like 2008. At 2008, I believe it's like, I want to say 14 or 16% of men have had zero sexual partners in the last year, and that climbs up to 28% in 2018. What happened in 2008? The Facebook app on the iPhone. What happened all the way, and then that's when all the dating apps came.
Okay.
And what it did was it caused a small group of men to get all these options and a large group of men to get none.
Or it caused these guys not to get none, but just they themselves deem themselves less worthy. They had
for sure, they're checking out.
Yeah, they're just quitting. They're like, this game's too hard to play. I'm out.
Chris Williamson just did one. He did a video talking about why have 50% of men dropped out of the dating market.
That's my point.
Yes.
I think they just quit. They're like, I don't want to play this game. It's hard. Right? Yeah, it's harder. The game's harder.
And think about the ways they can delude themselves. Pornography, online video games.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. They're lazy. They're like, oh, I can go get my fix over here when that used to not be a thing.
Yes.
Right. I also think that the goal changed, right? Because like you just did something interesting. Was at first we were talking about marriage when it was like, yeah, well, marriage is the goal in the 1950s. Like,
Yes.
we get married and we do our thing, and then it became sexual partners because for many, marriage is not the thing now.
Sure.
The desire and the goal of marriage is not what it was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So now it's like, all right, well, now we just changed how you even score in the game. And so it's now like, to me, I don't know. I think men are lazy. I think any of these bottom third guys, they could become just fine. I think that if you have just one trait that's exceptional, you'll be good.
Agreed.
You could be super jacked. You could be super wealthy. You could be super charismatic. You could be the ugliest, funniest dude ever and do well. Like, I don't think you need to have it all.
Yeah, we're talking about two sides of the same coin. The socioeconomic situation could be correct, which I like. For instance, I said in the short term, I believe there is no more middle class for men. Like, basically, you're doing awesome or you're having a hard time.
I agree with that.
Okay, what's happened though is like that's what my program is. Men of Action is, and this also. What I saw was this crisis in dating, and I was like, these guys here. Let me do this for you. You guys at the bottom who don't get it, no one's going to teach it to you.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's not going to be off forums or Reddit sites or whatever. What I'm going to do is I'm going to interview the guys who do get it, and then I'm going to pass that information down along to you. And one of the big pieces of information was that you are treated very poorly as a man if you're in an unfamiliar environment, but you're treated pretty equitably if you're in a familiar environment. So it seems to me like what you should do as a man is if you're in that bottom third is try to get as many women as you can into a familiar environment. So I literally teach a course that teaches you social circle, meaning how do I throw charity events and different types of pageants, competitions, contests, theme parties, birthday party, whatever, throw these events where, open houses for real estate, whatever. Yeah. Do these events where now women get to see you in a familiar environment instead of an unfamiliar. So you quit losing to Brock the bartender and Vincent the VIP host and Steve the male stripper. You keep losing to him instead because you get the woman into a familiar environment instead of an unfamiliar environment. Now you get treated more equitably. So that's what I teach in the Men of Action program when it comes to dating. I mean, I'm a performance coach. I teach a lot of military stuff, but that's the one thing from an evolutionary psychology standpoint, because there's this one glitch that's there for men, and it's called the mate choice copying thing, or sexy sons hypothesis. And that's the concept of men who women like, more women like. Meaning there's several situations where if you're a guy and you're seen to be attractive by several women, then even more women want to date you. And they not only do they show this with Homo sapiens, they do it with other forms of animals. So they'll take geese and they'll actually put stuffed animal geese next to the male ones, and more females want to breed with that male because they see the
it's like having
compliance.
Followers. It's just
having followers gets you more followers.
The herd mentality.
Correct. A guy who has 1 million followers, for him to get 10,000 new followers is not that big of a deal. Whereas a guy with 10,000 to get another 10,000 is huge.
Yeah.
So as you have more, you will get more. Same thing with 50 Cent. He talked about when I had no money, nobody wanted to loan me shit. When I had my first $1 million in the bank, I showed it to a bank. They wanted to loan me $3 million right after I did that. Right. It's the same. It's the same situation here. So that's one of the things that I noticed for sure. So one thing I started explaining to my guys is like, the crazy thing will happen is I can't make you taller. I can't help you get in better shape. I can't change your facial structure, the color of your eyes, or what ethnicity you are. But what I can do is to show images on a regular basis on social media of you getting compliance from women and attractive women following you, even if you're not sleeping with them. And when you do that, magically, you're going to notice that a lot more women are going to stop flaking on you, and a lot more women want to go on dates with you. And every one of my guys have tried it, and every one of them have told me that it works. Some of them take it too far.
How many men are like having just hot girls follow them, and like the girls are looking at their like that?
I have 700 clients right now, active clients, and
that one's interesting.
The vast majority of them will say that it happens. By the way, it's not a conscious thing. What'll happen is a girl will have several hundred men to choose from, and then she'll see this one guy's Instagram, and she'll be like, "Wait, this girl's really hot, and I follow her, and she follows this guy, and this girl's really hot, and she follows." And they might even go into followers, and they'll go into that thing called mutual. That little button, that little tab that says mutual friends on Instagram is a cheat code.
How do you get these guys to get hot girls to follow them?
You throw events where there's a couple things. You would throw events where you would invite these girls. So it'd be Maxim Party, Teatro Party, like different events like that. And you would invite them to these events. And I teach completely from start to finish how guys are able to do this. And also by putting constantly putting very relevant, competent, entertaining stuff on your social media. But even before,
they're building their personal brand.
for sure, building a personal brand, like memes, like funny memes, and you'll
Yeah.
have like super hot girls sending you like laughing emojis. If you do that enough times, and then she starts following you, or you make a funny video with you guys, right now, I'll give you a glitch. Go up to the most beautiful woman you've ever seen walking through Beverly Hills. Walk up to her and be like, "Hey, will you make a funny TikTok with me?" I don't care who you are. She will probably say yes. It's one of the weirdest things in the world, because women want attention like men want sex. And so when you use that attention economy to leverage in order to get more women to be in your ecosystem, what happens is now you're the guy who shows up to a party with 10 girls. And now, even though you may have nothing but platonic friendships with those 10 girls, the girls who are at the party are like, who the is this guy who just walked in with 10 girls? Not only that, every real estate agent, accountant, politician, or whatever is like, who is this guy who just walked into my party with 10 girls? And they give dude, if you never met me and I showed up to like an open house or one of your events, if I showed up to WealthCon and it was me with 12 beautiful women behind me.
Like, what is going on with this guy?
I absolutely did that to Ty Lopez one time. I showed up to one of his speeches with like 12 beautiful girls. But as soon as he got done, he wasn't trying to do no Q&A. He came over like, hey, what's going on, brother? What's happening here? It's just it's a cheat code. So having beautiful women in your life, being a married man, a single man, in any situation, it just makes things better. And this is another thing I'll tell my guys. Ratio is very important. When you go to most self-help conferences, is 99% men.
Yep.
It is. What I do is my events, all I tell guys is try to get the ratio even. And so if I have several different things to choose from and you're like, yeah, whenever I go to Michael Sartain's events, there's just like pretty girls there. It's like, I'm not trying to date them, but I just enjoy that there's hot women at all of his events. It's this weird thing that happens psychologically where it's this cheat code. I'll give you a best example. You know, the Hamptons, every summer there's these parties with billionaires that are out there, right? Every summer they do that. There's a book by Ashley Mears. She's a professor of sociology from Boston University. She goes undercover as a bottle rat for like 2 years, right? She's just basically a club girl and writes about it for a PhD thesis. She does it, and one of the things she expresses is that the men who went from party to party in the Hamptons, where these are the highest net worth individuals maybe in the entire country, he said that there was one thing that got you into every party. What do you think that was?
Having hot girls?
Having hot girls.
Wow.
You even remember that one guy bringing
Because money doesn't matter.
Yes. That one guy bringing the hot girl to Jordan Belfort's party. That's how he meets his wife. Remember that? He's having a party in the Hamptons, and that's where he meets his wife. That type of situation is like having hot girls gives you access. Having hot girls.
When you said that, it made me think of a different Leonardo DiCaprio movie, Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah.
Where he walks into the airport as the pilot, and he's got like 10 stewardess with him. He's just like walking through. Everyone's like, what is going on with this guy?
Yeah.
So funny.
It is one of the weirdest things. And by the way, at no point have I mentioned about dating or this being sexual in any way whatsoever. For whatever reason.
It's a status thing.
It is just a status thing. It absolutely is. Women showing compliance to a man is a status thing to women and to men. It makes, for whatever reason, it has helped me fantastically as far as networking is concerned, and it makes women attracted to you. It is a function of evolutionary psychology. If you do not believe me, if you're like, this is misogynistic and I don't believe anything you're saying, look up mate choice copying.